se va a llenar ahí, se está llenando la...
I guess we're starting in here.
What?
We're in here today.
Yeah, I've been here regularly on Charles Street.
Oh, we just started about.
Oh, no, they've been here before. Well, sometimes it's over there. Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Friday night, it was outside.
Okay.
Pero ya
I didn't make this Friday, I was in Sacramento. I drove in from Bakersfield this morning, early. Just took a nice
Sí.
nap.
Pues ya le pusiste, ya le
I went to E-Car, they had friends
Okay.
that I knew sponsored. I usually go there on Saturday. Or on Monday, I forget.
Yeah. You normally don't go there on Shabbat morning now, or
What?
you normally don't go there on Shabbat morning?
Yeah, usually there. The only Minha in there. They have a half hour. But the rabbis take the turns though. Well, sometimes there's more late. People pop up when they're on vacation. It's good because they're good, so they add a flavor. I think there's 3 or 4 of us that wear the filling. But the kid read the portion, the whole thing. Regularly, the Mormon kids, they train to read the Torah. It's good. I only read my mom did. That was the last Torah I ever read. And it was the Shema. It was the last thing of the Shema that's in the one. My father's bar mitzvah states in June. So that's in the Torah. You don't talk about whether it's what?
Only God knows.
Okay.
But they don't really get involved with the services.
What can I do?
Right?
That helps us all.
She went to.
It's a matter of marketing. When you see a benefit for yourself, you do it. That was the least money. I was on a campaign. It was tough. So I was here, and he was involved in the people a little bit. And I found the people service cleansed me. It was a very tough campaign in Bedford under a mushroom plant where they were just vicious. And so I became a South Reserve for the health. That was 20 years ago, 22 years ago.
Oh, boy. Long time.
Well, a long time not.
Good to see
I
you.
would go when I can.
Still functioning. It's good.
My mom is Orthodox, so.
Your father was a
My dad was a
socialist?
socialist.
Okay. Very
So I went to both. I got the best of both, There's a healthy tolerance for those who said,
Familia.
you might be there, but ain't doing nothing. To someone who believes the God is heavy. I like that great parable about the guy who was, this big flood, and he went on top of the building, and they came by with a boat, and they said, "Come and close." He goes, "God will save me." And then water got up to his, like, on top of the thing. Then he goes, helicopter came by with a saying, "Hey, come on there, no God will save me." Then he drowned. He goes to God. He goes, "How come you didn't save me?" He goes, "I sent you a boat. I sent you a helicopter. What do you want?"
Right. Yeah, that's a delightful contemporary.
You heard that parable before?
Yeah.
So you're patient enough not to say I heard it before. That's what I would have done. See, I got to learn patience.
That was very good.
And I have a friend of mine who's Jewish, mother, Muslim, Iranian father, met as grad students here, and married an African-American woman who is Episcopalian, and he grew up in no religion. And he told me that's his most favorite parable in his family. It's funny.
If I'm repeating all you said, I just now I can hear you. Yeah.
Well, that's good. You know what?
No, I heard you well.
I'm the same way, but I'm too lazy to put them on. I did 3 things in the pandemic. I gave up all the meds, and then I lost the weight, so I figured I don't need the meds. So I haven't even checked yet. I will.
Yeah, okay.
Can't believe in medicine.
Apparently,
But I lost, blood pressure, cholesterol, that's all I was taking. 80 pounds, I had to have done something.
Yeah,
you
right.
start
And then
saying
I
this.
stopped the hearing aids because I didn't really.
אנא בכוח גדולתי ממך
My
תתיר
problem was
צרורה,
I hear everything you're
קבל
saying,
רינת אותך, סגבנו
but
תארנו
the
נורא,
indirect sounds.
נג ליבו
Yes.
לא
Most of the time people say shit worth hearing anyway.
בכן תארם רחמם, צדקתך
No, I
תמיד.
was in
לשים
here,
קדוש בראש
I would sit where you're sitting
שולחן
approximately,
יחיד
someone was speaking
גאה
over
לעמך
there,
פני
I would always say,
יוכרנו
can you mind
בשמך.
speaking louder?
שבתנו
Not
קבל
realizing
ושמת
it was my
אדנו
problem.
יודע תדמות. In other words,
Yeah, I still
every
pretty
six
bad. I say
word
what,
is
usually
one
get-
pasuk,
But
and it's,
I should
it's
probably
like
go get checked because it
what
does
it's
impact
called
your time.
meditation, Anna
Are you a
Before.
Kaiser?
Every day you
No.
say it in the morning, it's
I
like
have
a
a
new day,
health
new
insurance.
spirit, new
But
everything.
the last time I went, I got the hearing aid person in
Did you
Beverly.
know
Joey, you were right, we do
I went
start
to
saying
Costco
it
if I
tonight. I
still
looked
have
it
a
up.
hearing aid.
I see the prices are really gonna be
For some
dropping.
Do you read the
They'll
Hebrew
be off the shelf
newspaper?
now.
I don't.
Hearing
You
aids.
don't
Yeah,
have time
the expense
to-
wasn't the
But
problem.
you
The
do,
problem
you
was
can
I
read.
didn't feel as
Yeah,
strong.
Anyway, they said that this Anna בכוח שנכתבה
once I
על ידי
decided
רבי
Though my hearing
נחומיה
is
בן
bad, it's not
הקנה
a big
לפני
problem.
2000 שנה, it's a
I
meditation.
hear her.
אנה בכוח
Still
גדולה
understand the
כמנחת
accent.
לפי הצורה, you know that.
Yeah, yeah,
We
sure,
say
from
it
Friday
all
night.
the time.
Yeah.
But if you
Irv,
say it in the morning,
shot.
every morning, it's like a new
Good
day,
stuff.
new spirit,
Ah,
new
interesting.
beginning,
Very
you
interesting.
know? Yeah, I thought so.
I've never heard about it being, I've
Yeah.
never heard of it being recited.
Meditation, you're right.
Well, being recited in the morning.
Yeah, they say to say it in the morning.
Hi.
Can you repeat one more
Yeah.
time?
Yes.
Exactly what you said vis-à-vis the veil. I could go look at it.
Oh, sure. I said that there's two reasons why women veil, right?
The one modesty, got that one.
Right. The other one is because when Rebecca meets Isaac for the first time, she veils herself. And the rabbis say that it's because of modesty, but the way that I read it is that instead of it being about modesty, is that she's overwhelmed with the fact that she knows that she's about to start this new life with this person and be kind of all enthralled by him. And so she veils herself to remind herself that she needs to be true to who she is. Yeah.
You put that much better than I was thinking about it, and that's wonderful.
I'm so glad. I'm glad that you like it.
That's a good one.
Thank you. Thank
That's
you.
a
I
good
use it at every wedding, so it's one that I think about a lot. Yeah.
Well, you know, if it's a good one, you stick with it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, really, I really only am marrying people once at this point, so you know, I can use it at every wedding. It doesn't. It's not a repeat because I'm doing it at every wedding.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah. I know that it said that we're going to start at 6:35. We might start a few minutes early because Shabbat actually ends at 8, so I want to get those 5 minutes in. But we'll start in just a few minutes. Alan, if no one else is here to lead Mincha, do you want to?
I would be honored to do so.
Okay, great. I don't know if anybody else will come with a chiyuv, but I don't see anybody here who has one. How are you? Good, good.
We had a nice turnout last night.
Yeah, it was so nice.
We were at shul last night or this
Really nice
morning.
turnout.
Yeah, it was
I
so
was at
great.
shul
It
this
was
morning.
really
I was
great.
in,
It was,
Vancouver.
Oh, okay.
I think
Also
at
the
the end we
Yes.
had like 280 RSVPs for dinner.
So many people.
Yeah.
Many children. It was
So
really
nice.
nice. I didn't know half the people. It was really nice.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
This is that we're doing.
Totally, totally. Yeah,
I
no,
wasn't going to.
it was great.
I don't know.
And it was nice that we didn't do assigned seating, so people could just kind of like mingle and sit where they wanted, and like it felt just much more smoozy than really anything else. So yeah, it was great. It was really great.
And
Yeah.
you wait for this one?
On Thursday. Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, it is really nice, and it's also like the absolute craziest time for me to be leaving for 2 weeks. But
When do you leave?
Thursday.
That's why you're masking.
Yeah. I mean, I today when I did the Ofra, I unmasked. When I teach, I might unmask, but I'm trying to mask as much as I can, just not get COVID. My real concern is actually not getting COVID before I leave. My real concern is getting COVID in Israel and coming back and not being able to do the high holidays. That's my biggest.
That's my worry too. You better not let that happen.
I'm gonna
That's breaking your contract.
gonna try my darndest. Yeah.
No, it's called God saying, have a vacation, I'm giving it to you if you want it. But
Yeah.
I know. It would be, I would, the truth is that I mean, if I got COVID in Israel, I would be way past the 10 days once the high holidays hit. But if I was still testing positive, I would probably try to figure out a way such that I could only be outside or whatever.
Let me
I don't
tell you
check it.
something. I check the death rate in the New York Times every day. It was at 300 at its low. In the last month 450 going up to 500, and now it's down to 450. That'd be like a plane crash every day. A plane crash
Right,
every day
right.
in this country, if you
Right.
fly, be careful.
Yeah.
And I'm not wearing a mask, I'm in the room, I'm not like I'm super cautious myself. I was with
Hi,
5,000 people on Sunday, well, you know, I'm not worried, but the point is don't take it like it's, don't think you get it, you know, automatic. I can read people who got it, they were out for 10 days, they were in their 30, in their
Yeah.
40s.
Yeah, totally.
I'm right here.
It's still not a joke.
All right, Marshall, are you reading or is Mark reading?
I'm not reading.
You're not reading. Are you here for yard site? Just here? Oh, so nice. Okay, great.
What a concept. I'm here to
Rabbi
love it.
Schatz, that's what you're here, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Come on.
No, I just wanted to make sure that if you had a chiyuv. Yeah, no, yeah.
So you don't do,
Yes.
is he reading?
I am now.
Okay, for Minha?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll flip this to you until I, then I'll switch it on.
Okay, you reading Torah?
I'm reading Torah, yeah.
There's no chiyuv to do it. To wear a talit when you're reading Torah, but if you're permissible but not
Oh,
required.
there's no,
My
there's no,
page number.
my understanding, Rabbi, is that there's
Nice. I have it in the lula. Yeah.
my understanding is there's no obligation to wear a talit if you're reading Torah or coming up for an aliyah during Minha. Is
Right.
that
The
correct?
talit during Mincha and during Kabbalat Shabbat are just to indicate who the leader is. But you can. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but you don't have to. Okay, I think we're gonna get started. I know it's 2 minutes early, but we're gonna start. Great. Okay. Do we want to let people in and I'll start? Oh, everybody's let in, so there's nobody there. Great. Yeah, but are there people who are supposed to be let in?
yeah, I need right now.
Okay. Okay, so Alan, get started and then I'll go get the Torah. Okay, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We're going to get started on page 214 in the Lev Shalem. And in a moment, I'm going to bring a Torah in from the other room because there's not a Torah here. And so I'll ask you all to rise as I do that. But for right now, you can stay seated, page 214.
Ashrei Yoshvei Veitecha Odihalu Chasela Tila LeDavid. Potech et yadecha mesvilocha haratzon. Tiladna yadabe pi, vivavecha bas Hashem kochel elam vaed, vanachnu echiyam et aviad olam, hallelujah. Uva l'tzion goel, pesha pesha be'yakov, nu Adonai. Ve'ata kadosh yeshevti lo Yisrael, v'korazel ze ve'abahar, Kadosh kadosh, Adonai tzva'ot melech haaretz kvodo. Vatisa. Baruch kavod Adonai mimkomo. Titenem leYaakov chesed l'Avraham, asher nishbata l'avotenu mi'yimei kedem. ויבטחו בך ידי שמך, כי לא עזבת דרשך אדוני, אדוני חפץ למען צדקו, יגדיל תורה ויאדיר. יתגדל ויקדש שמי רבה, ועמד דבר קירותי, והמליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומייכון, ובחיי דכו בישראל, פגלה בזמן קריב, אמרו אמן, יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר וידלה וידלה שמי קודשה, בריחו, לאלה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תשפטה ונחמתה דרן בעלמה, ואמרו אמן. ואני תפילתי לך אדוני את רצון, אלוהים ברוב חסדך, ענני באמת אישך, ויהי בנצור אהרון, ויאמר משה, קום אדוני ויפוצו אויביך, וינוסו משנאיך מפניך, כי מציון תצא תורה, דבר אדוני מירושלים, ברוך שנתן תורה לעמו, ישראל בקדושתו. גדלו לאדוני איתי, ומה שמו יחדיו. Reading it towards the ark.
No, sorry, reading it towards people.
Okay, then shift. So strange, everyone does it a little differently, I never remember. It seems strange it's going down like this. but
Easier to read it that way, the other way.
That was my thinking, but
Yeah, easier that way.
I am not the...
It's just because the table is backwards right now. Like the table should be
The other way around.
the other way around. Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
1 second.
All right, we are going to be in Parshat Shoftim. I know this isn't on in this room, but it's on for the people on Zoom, so that's why I'm using it. It is on page 1088 in the Eitz Chaim Chumash. And if you are not in the Eitz Chaim Chumash, it is Deuteronomy 16, verse 18 is the beginning of this reading for Parshat Shoftim. 1088.
1088, yeah. 1088.
Okay. ותגלה ותרא מלכותו לנזמן קרוב ויחום, פדתנו ותתם בית ישראל לחנוך חסר רחמים ורצון ונאמר אמן. הכל הבוגדוהנו ותנו כבוד לתורה יעמוד. Mike, you want to Leah? Oh.
Very big.
Okay.
You'd be amazed.
All right. It's on him.
We can just use the, we can use the,
Yes.
Chagoram.
The bracha, yes, right here. Yeah. You can go up with that.
Okay. So let me get this thingy here, hold on. Just had it here.
Alan, you schwitzed in this talus. It's gross. Oh, God. Yuck. Baruch Adonai, Baruch. Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bacharabanu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Sorry. Hold the eights, please. Thank you. Let me just pull forward a little bit so I can see better. Thank you. Shofatim v'shotarim, titen lecha v'chol shi'arecha, asher Adonai Elohecha noten lecha lishvatecha, v'shaftu et ha'am mishpat tzedek, lo ta'teh mishpat, lo ta'kir panim, lo tikach shochad, ki ha'shochad ya'aver enei chachamim, v'yisalev divrei tzadikim, tzedek tzedek tirdof leman tichyev yerashta et haaretz asher Adonai Elohecha noten laha.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natapet tokenu. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Mark with the big birthday. Yeah, Amud.
Big birthday, Mark Wolf.
Aveli Melech, I knew the beginning. Ben Shmuel V'Leah Eliashenit. That's true. I can make it all past presidents.
Don't even.
Baruch Hu Adonai Baruch. Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bacharabanu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Lo tita lecha asher kol eitz eitz el mizbach Adonai Elohecha asher taseh lach lo takim lecha matzeva asher sanei Adonai Elohecha lo tizbach Adonai Elohecha shor vaseh asher yevo mum kol davar ra ki toavat Adonai Elohecha hu ki motzei v'kirbecha v'yechad sharecha asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach Isho Isha Asher Yaaseh et hara V'yenei Adonai Elohecha lavor brito V'yelech v'yavod Elohim acherim V'yishtachu lahem V'lashemesh o layareach o l'chol tzva shamayim asher lo tziviti V'hugad lecha v'shamata v'darashta hetev V'nei emet nachon hadavar ne'esta Hatoeva zot b'Yisrael, v'hotzeta et ha'ish hahu, o et ha'isha hi, asher asu et hadavar hara hazeh el shi'arecha, et ha'ish o et ha'isha, uskaltem bo avnim bo ametu, al pi shnayim edim, o shlosha edim yumat hamet, lo yumat al pi ed echad, Yad ha'edim tia bo v'rishona l'hamito v'yad kol ha'am ba'acharona v'yarta hara mikirbecha ki palei mimicha davar lamishpat ben dam ledam ben din ledain uvein nega lanega divrei rivot bisharecha v'kamta v'yalita el hamakom ashivchar Adonai Elohecha bo uvata el hakohanim halavim v'el hashofet asher yeh bayamim hahem v'darashta v'kidu lecha et devar hamishpat v'asita al pi hadavar asher yagidu lecha min hamakom hahu asher yivcha Adonai v'shamarta lasot kechol asher yarucha al pi haTorah asher yaruch. Is that the end of that? Asher yarucha.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natapet tokenu. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Are you allowed to tell us what big birthday this is?
60.
Sesenta?
60.
Oh, oh my God, I don't know.
I know Spanish, so
I
yeah.
assumed that's what it was. Well, happy birthday in advance.
You assume that?
No.
You're assuming he looks that age?
No, I assumed
Ay,
it's not how
ay,
to
ay.
count to 10 in Spanish.
Right.
That's what that meant. Anybody want the third aliyah?
Why not?
Yeah, come on up. Come on up. Ta'amad. Carmela.
Georgia.
Bat Georgia, Laliah.
ומאיר.
ומאיר, לליאה שלישית. We're on verse 11, 12, on page 1091.
Yeah.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
על פי התורה אשר יורך ועל המשפט אשר אמרו לך תעשה לא תסור מן הדבר אשר יגידו לך ימין ושמאל והאיש אשר יעשה בזדון לבלתי שמו אל הכהן העומד לשרת שם את אדוני אלוהיך או אל השופט ומת האיש ההוא וביארת הרע מישראל וכל העם ישמעו ויראו ולא יזידון עוד. Kiss it again, back here.
It's amazing how you read without the vowels here and so correctly. Yeah.
Okay, let's do the last lesson.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen.
Hey, do you want to wrap? The table's backwards, so it's going to be a little bit hard. But do you want to do it from this side? I can turn the Torah.
Yeah,
Bezot HaTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai v'yam Moshe. Eitz chaim hi l'machazikim ba v'tomech le'amehu shar. Eitz chaim hi l'machazikim ba v'tomech le'amehu shar. V'chol netivotei shalom yain 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 So, does anybody have a yahrzeit other than Sherry? Okay, so Sherry, I'll ask you to come forward. And if you're comfortable doing so, I'll have you hold the Torah. This is Sherry's first yahrzeit for her dad. And though I don't see her mom or sister on Zoom, potentially they're on live stream. So I just want to mention them in case they are. I just want to say something briefly before, but then we'll allow you to share a memory if you would like afterwards. I was blessed, honored to be able to do Sherry's dad's funeral. And, you know, we meet with the family before we do a funeral. And I happen to know this family very well, but did not know Sherry's dad. And it just came across how special of a man he was. And it made me sad that I didn't get to know him, right? That the way that I was getting to know him was through memories and through stories, and specifically through his grandkids. And I think that's actually how we hope to live with legacy, right? We hope that even the people who don't get to meet us, and we hope that even the people who might not even ever know us physically, but will just hear our names, hear of things that make us wish that we could have met them, right? That we could have met, I feel the same way about my great-grandparents, right? That I could have met them because I hear these beautiful stories about them. So when I'm saying this El Male for him, I really do feel like I knew him, even though I know I never met him. But just the fact that I have these stories, I know what his grandkids called him, right? I have these intimate details about his life. It makes me sad that I didn't get to meet him, but still makes me feel as though he was just a powerful and beautiful source in this world. Thank you. I'm sure it would have been mutual. When I pause, will you just tell me his Hebrew name? Okay, great. El Malei Rachamim Shochein Bamramim Hametzeh Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShechina B'ma'alot Kedoshim U'Tehorim Kezohar Ki Amazirim Lenishmat Benjamin Ben Sarah Shehalach Leolamo Began Eden Tehem Menuchato Ana Ba'al HaRachamim Hastirehu Betzester Knafecha Leolamim Utzor Bitzor Chaim Et Nishmato Adonai Hu Nachalato Ve'anuach B'Shalom HaMishkavo V'nomar Amen. Do you want to share a few words, Sherry? Okay. You're so welcome. And may his memory forever be uplifted. Alan, I'll call you back up to finish out the Torah service. We will be on page 220. Yeah, no problem. Oh, I just managed it backwards. Sorry. There you go.
Hallelujah, Shem Adonai, Ki Nizkar Shemo Levado. It's time to mark the Bav, and Racham Eushad, Rahach Noam, V'choniyot Shalom, Hashivenu Adonai Lecha V'nashuva, Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem.
The Chatzikah will lead us into the whispered Amidah on page 222. Please remember when you are reciting the Amidah that we are still in Rosh Chodesh, so you will recite Ya'aleh V'Yavo on page 227.
Yitgada v'yikada shemer haba, be'amad yivakuti v'alich malchute b'chayechon u'vyomechon v'chedocho be'Yisrael b'gila v'zman kariv imu. Amen. Ishmer b'avach le'lam le'me'amaya, yitbarach v'yishtabah v'yitbar v'yidma v'yidnaseh v'yitadar v'yidaleh v'yidalash merkudisha b'richu, le'elam ingo b'chadar v'shirata tushbadav nechamatadan b'amavimu. Amen.
continue at your own pace. Alan will begin the Amidah for us on page 223, and then we'll join together for the Kedusha on page 225.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Eloi Avotenu Eloi Avraham Eloi Yitzhak Eloi Yaakov Eloi Sarah Eloi Rivka Eloi Rachel Eloi Leah Hayal HaGadol HaGibor VaNorah Elyon Gomer Chasadim Tovim V'Konei HaKol V'Zocher Chastei Avod U'Mivigo Livnei B'neihem L'man Shmo B'Ava Melech Ozer V'Gidom Moshiach Magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham V'Ketzorah Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechem Yitav Rab L'Hoshia Morid Atal Mechalkel Chaim V'Chesed Mechem B'Tim Barachim Rabim Samech Noflim V'Ofer Cholim V'Matir Asurim V'Kayem Ato L'Shanei Avar Michamach Habagiv V'Rod U'Midom Melach Melech Miminuchim Atzmiach Yeshua V'Ne'eman Adalecha Yov Meitim Baruch Atah Adonai Mechayei HaMeitim נקדש את שמך בעולם כשם שרק תשמרו בשמי מרום וככתוב היד נביאך וקרא זה אל זה בעמך קדוש 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 ענה צבאו מלך על הארץ כבודו למעתם ברוך יומהו ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו דברי קודשך כתוב לאמור ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, לנצח נצים קדושתך נקדיש, בשבחך אלוהינו, מבינוי מושל עולם ועד, כי המלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. אתה חפשים אחד, מכם חסר גוי אחד בארץ, תבערת גדולה, ועטרת ישועה, יום מנוחה, קדושה לעמך נתת, אברהם יגל, יצחק ירנן, יעקב ובניו ינוחו בו, מנוחת אהבה ונדבה, מנוחת אמת ואמונה, מנוחת שלום ושלווה והשקט והבטח, מנוחה שלמה שאתה רוצה בה, יכירו בניך וידעו כי מאיתך היא מנוחתם ועל מנוחתם יקדישו את שמך אלוהינו ואבותינו עצב מנוחתנו קדשנו במצוותיך ותן חלקנו בתורתך סבנו מטובך ושמחנו בישועתך ותאר ליבנו לבדך באמת הנחילנו אדוני אלוהינו בעבר ורצון שבת קודשך וינוחו ויעשו מקדשי שמך ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת רצה אדוני אלוהינו בעמך עשו את תפילתם והשב את עבודה בביתך ותפילתם ותקבל ברצון ותהי רצון תמיד ודע ישראל עמך אלוהינו אלוהי אבותינו יעלה ויבוא ויגיב וירצה וישמע ויבכה וזיכרון ופקדוננו וזיכרון אבותינו וזיכרון משיח בן דוד עבדך וזיכרון ירושלים יקודשך וזיכרון כל מחבר ישראל לפניך לפלטה לטובה לכן אל חסר רחמים לחיים ושלום ביום ראש החודש הזה זוכרנו אדוני אלוהינו בו לטובה ופקדנו בו לברכה והושיענו בו לחיים ובדבר ישועה ומחוץ וחננו ורחם עלינו והושיענו כי לך עינינו כי המלך חנון ורחום אתה ותחזינה עינינו בשובך לציון ברחמים ברוך אתה אדוני המחזיר שכינתו לציון מודים אנחנו לך שאת אדוני אלוהינו ואבותינו הטוב כאילו חלה רחמך, ורחם כאילו תמר שדך, מעולם קיווינו לך. ועל כולם יתברך ויתרומם שמך מלכנו תמיד לעולם ועד. וכל יום יודוך סלע ויהללו את שמך באמת הישועתנו ועזרתנו סלע. ברוך אתה אדוני עטו שמך לכהן להודות. שלום רב ישראל עמך ועל כל יושבי תבל תשים לעולם. כי אתה מלך אדון לכל השלום וטוב בעיניך. לברך נמך ישראל בכל עת וכל שעה בשלומך. ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום. יתגדל ויקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברכי ותברך מלכותי בחייכון וביומייכון וחייכון בישראל, בגלה בזמן קריב עמו, אמן. ישמי רבה ברך לעולם ולעולם הבעיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתברך ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי קדושה בריחו, לעילא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תשבתה ונחמתה דרמן בעלמא ועמו, אמן. תתקבל צלותו וברכות לכל ישראל, קדם ושמיא ועמו, אמן. יש להם רב מן שמיא וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועמו, אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועמו, אמן. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ויאמרו יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה קירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומייכון וחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם עולמי עולמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא. ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקדושה בריחו, לעילא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיא, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן.
We'll grab some nosh and come back in like 10-ish minutes and do a little bit of learning together. Enjoy.
Rabbi?
Yes?
Quick question, if I may.
Yes.
So I thought that when it's Rosh Chodesh and B'nai Mitzvah, that the morning service starts at 12:15. But this morning it was 12:30.
It's possible we just start at 9:30. I don't know if there's a science to it, but because it's the summer, I don't know that we've started at all at 9:15 this summer.
Oh, got it. Okay. I mean, no big
I
deal.
think I don't actually know, but it's possible you are correct.
Better early and late. And also, I keep thinking about what you said about Re'eh. Friday night.
About what?
Re'eh, Parsha Re'eh.
Yes.
Not as seeing people, you know. I like anyway. I just thought I'd tell you. I keep thinking about.
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed that.
Yeah, thought provoking. All right, now you get to go eat. Not seeing, but eating.
Yes. But it's a very, like, the first time that I did it, it was mostly, we actually had someone propose on the trip. It was a very different demographic than this one. But I think it'll be nice, and it'll just be a very different mindset for them in terms of like what their community. Yeah, I'm gone. I'm on the ground for 11 days. So 2 days. Yeah, we start in Jerusalem, then we go one day to like Masada and Sarah, and then we go up north for 2 days, and then we're Tel Aviv for. Yeah. At least one person per couple has to never been. So I don't think on this trip we have any couples who haven't been. It's a bunch of different organizations. I never remember those for a very long time. Yeah, I did a group in Northern California, and I was supposed to do a group in LA. That some of the people actually were supposed to be on and it actually got postponed from March of this past year, but I couldn't go because I was in the South, so Matt did it. I'm gonna be slamming there. I mean, I think I'm gonna have to work. On the plane, like we also get like 3 nights, and the truth is, as much as I love to go, like I have to do stuff. So like I can sit in a hotel room, a really nice hotel room, and I like saw them, but then by the time no, but tell her, I'll ask Susan on Monday. I guess I thought I wrote her a thank you note and like she. No, sorry, my grandparents who made us free
You didn't say your house smells good?
Yeah.
Someone's thinking, I'll put this like that for you. Someone's showing some thinking and planning. Well, I rarely use the word.
It was quite in the wrong. That's why I was
Usually it's evidence.
Oh, I know. It just got lost. You know,
It has a job.
and I said to them, I was like, I know what it's for. And I was like, I know it's
Yeah.
for.
It's been a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and they got nervous. So, but then actually happened.
You got to a lot.
So I get it. Even when it's not, you know,
Where did you get to?
that kind of money.
Even if they had played it for me,
Yeah.
it really made it 3 years.
I meant what I said. It was really,
It was one on the
yeah, I think in general.
I'm not good at that. I know we're five little mountains. I know what's wrong with that. Next door one was say hello to. He has this.
Oh, no, I'm not.
Well, really bad at saying. Two was like me. Yeah. And actually, it was almost. Oh, they wrote. I'm sorry. They wrote it. All it is, you'll see. They got it. Scored it.
Yeah, those two ones were really hard. That's how I felt.
Beagles are actually soft turkeys. Beagles are actually soft turkeys. Mine's not. Rock.
Yeah, I don't know how to do it closer. I think I have more to do with. Sure I am. It's going to be called the High Holidays. Yeah, it's funny because I get back on the 14th at 6 a.m. and I'm coming straight to work because, quite frankly, I need to. But you know, that's like 12 days before Erev Rosh Hashanah, and I typically. Well, they offered me this trip or the February trip, and the February trip is over. It's always over 2 Shabbatot, and in February, the 2 Shabbatot that it happens to be over are 2 Shabbatot where I've been a mitzvah. Like I'm the rabbi for the B'nai Mitzvah, so I couldn't go. It'll be very nice. Hopefully, it'll give me a lot of inspiration for things I'm going to say on the high holidays, and it'll be what it'll be. But exhausting. It is, and I have a bar mitzvah that week too. I get back on the 14th, and I have a bar mitzvah on the 17th. Yeah. Okay, and I'm hopefully flying with only carry-on luggage. Thank you.
Will you get to see the Beth Am interns that are in rabbinic interns fellows that are in Israel?
Probably, yeah. I don't have so much time, so hopefully, but unclear at this moment. But yeah. Okay, we're gonna get started. So this teaching is coming off of I am not a huge TV watcher, I wouldn't say, but I do, when I watch TV, I really like justice shows or like medical shows. Things like, Grey's Anatomy of old, though it's still happening, or like Law and Order, or there's like the whole kind of trifecta of Chicago Med and Chicago Fire. Like I like a show that has a problem and they solve the problem. I don't know what that says about me, but that's the kind of TV I like. So Law and Order is one of those shows where, you get a case at the beginning and they hopefully solve it by the end. It doesn't always go their way, but they solve it. And so when I was reading through the Parsha, this Parsha very famously has Tzedek Tirdof in it. That we could have spoken about that for hours. I have spoken about that before on the Bima, so I thought we'll take a different angle this week. And this year. So in Devarim, chapter 17, verse 6, it says, Al pi shnaim edim, o shlosha edim, yumat hamet lo yumat al pi eid echad. Okay, so it's a little bit of bizarre Hebrew to get through. So the translation makes it into English. But the beginning of it quite literally says, from the mouth of 2 witnesses or 3 witnesses, right? So from the mouth of, so keep that in mind. The way that they've made this into English is the translator, probably JPS or Cora, and I don't actually remember which translation I took from Sefaria. It says, a person shall be put to death only on the testimony. So it's still al-pi, right? Only on the testimony of 2 or more witnesses. No one shall be put to death on the testimony of a single witness. So what is this, before we even look at the commentaries, what is this basically telling us? Yeah, Joey? Okay, so you're reading into it a little bit. That's not what the pshat is saying, but what Joey's drashing on is that if there's only one person saying that something has happened, potentially they're making it up, because if there's not another witness, there's no one to say you're telling the truth or you're not. Yeah, Marshall. Right. Surely dead. Right. It's like the Monty Python. Yeah, thank you. I was like, it's on the tip of my tongue. Right. That is really interesting to say. Yumat hamet. Right. That the dead person is surely dead. But really, what we're trying to get at here is that you should not put a person to death. So you shouldn't. I don't know how to say this like in clear English, but you shouldn't make death for a person who would be the dead person, is kind of the way that they're writing this in Hebrew. Tom, do you have your hand up before? No, okay. Anybody else want to say something about this verse? Just like what we're getting at here from this verse? Yeah, Alan. Yeah.
that the rabbis very that you shouldn't put someone to death. And the Mishnah really, Talmud really goes through the detail of that.
Yeah. I don't think I have Mishnah on here, but yeah.
But the notion that, and it's unusual to say 2 witnesses or 3 witnesses.
Yeah.
Because normally it's something that will be established by 2 witnesses.
Sure.
A few exceptions. But now they're saying that in the case of death, it could be 2 or 3. It seems superfluous to say that you have to have 2 or 3 witnesses. I guess it doesn't be inclinations that really don't want the death penalty.
Okay. So Alan's giving a little bit of a drash on this as well. That there is we are learning from this. We may be implying from this that the rabbis are trying to make it very hard for there to be a death penalty, right? That you have to have 2 witnesses or potentially even 3 witnesses. 3 witnesses, definitely more than 2. You need to have many people who can say that this would be the right thing to do. So potentially, and Alan's calling upon other sources that come later in our canon that speak to not wanting to have the death penalty. It's similar to, you all know the story of the stoning of a child, right, based on what they might do to their parents. Ben Sorer Moret, we try to make it very, 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 very hard for that kid to actually be stoned to death. Why? Because that's terrible and we shouldn't do that. So the rabbis make it almost impossible to actually do something so egregious that you would be put to death in that way. And maybe similarly here, that we are trying to make it as hard as possible without getting rid of it completely, as hard as possible to put someone to death. Mark? Yeah.
Parents would need to own their children.
Right.
And our Torah has taken that ability away from parents.
Right.
Because they have to be only at court.
Right.
You have to take it to the elders. And no child would get that.
Great. So Mark's just adding that, there were hoops to have to go through to make something that egregious take place. And it seems that if we were to continue reading on this in more rabbinic sources, like the Mishnah and the Talmud, that might be the case for this as well. Ibn Ezra goes to something that Alan mentioned, like, why do we have to say 3, right? We say 2, so why do we have to say 3? We know that it needs to be more than 1, so why not say 2 or 10, right? Why does it say 2 or 3? Who accepts the testimony of 2 witnesses. So says the Gaon, look, the Torah does not state whether we accept the testimony of relatives or of a woman or the testimony of an enemy of the deceased. Some say that if 2 witnesses contradict 2 witnesses, then a 3rd witness determines innocence or guilt, right? So if you need an odd number, right? You need an odd man out. I often thought about this when I'm one of four. I'm one of 4. I have 3 siblings. And I often thought about this. I have 3 brothers. And so I often felt like I was the odd lady out, right? That they had one another and I was the odd man out. But what it's saying here is that if you have 2, it's very easy for them to confer or for them to be able to just say, we're going to go this way. But if there's a 3rd, it's harder because now you have this 3rd opinion that could go against the 2 or could be that one voice that we want to listen to. Others say 2 witnesses from among the wise men and 3 from the others, which it's a little bit of I don't know. It's a little bit of an awkward phrase. Basically, they're saying maybe it would be 2 chachamim, right? 2 sages, 2 people of high acclaim, or 3 people who don't have such high acclaim. So, in the world of like Temple Beth Am, 2 rabbis versus 3 lay people is what they're basically saying. I'm not sure that's so kind, and also it matters on what the issue is, right? If you're putting someone to death, I don't think that a rabbi necessarily knows any more than 3 lay people, right? It doesn't necessarily matter how much knowledge you have, maybe of the issue, but not necessarily just in the world. But the way that it's written in the Hebrew, Ibn Ezra seems to be saying the chachamim of the generation, or just 3 other guys. We are thus forced to rely on the words of tradition, meaning we're forced to just see the Torah for what it says and go with the 2 or 3. Any thoughts or comments on this commentary? Yeah, Marshall. Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Right. Right. Interesting. That like if he's already been found guilty, that now we're just putting him to death as opposed to just letting him rot. Yeah. Right. Right. Deadified. Yes. I'll ask Zioni Zevit if that's okay to say. Deadified. Yeah. Carmela. Okay. 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 What do I, Rebecca, think about that? I think that's trash. But yeah, so that's not true. The way in which let me tell everybody at home what what Carmela just uses an example, just in the case of Adim, not in the case of the text we're learning right now, is that if you're at a Jewish wedding and the Adim for your chuppah and for your ketubah are gay, they do not count as Adim. That is not true. The case in traditional Judaism, Orthodox law, would say that an aid, a witness, needs to be a man who is halachically observant, right, who follows the letter of the law and is shomer Shabbat. The reason for that, and by the way, we don't hold by that in egalitarian conservative Judaism any longer. We each hold kind of by standards of that. But what that basically meant was someone who was knowledgeable. It didn't have anything to do with actually keeping Shabbat, because you don't get married on Shabbat. So it didn't actually have to do with that. It didn't actually have to do with Jewish law either, because what the rabbis would have said if it really mattered about Jewish law is that they could read the ketubah, but it doesn't say that. It just says that they need to know Jewish law. So what the rabbis seem to be implying in that is that they need to be knowledgeable. So if two gay men signed a ketubah and they were knowledgeable Jews, Hareza meshubach. The ketubah is fine. If you're dealing with a Haredi wedding, first of all, they wouldn't be signing the ketubah. But second of all, then they might see that as not valid. But in today's day, in this community, in the liberal world, that would be totally fine. Yep. Yeah, sure. Okay, Chizkuni. So Chizkuni says, he must not be executed on the basis of the testimony of only one witness, right? That's the end of the verse. If you were to ask what news this verse contains, after all, a single witness cannot bring about a conviction, even if the case involves only a possible fine, right? So it was always the case, I guess, that I'm not a lawyer, nor am I someone who's studied this type of Torah in its entirety, but you never could have a single witness. So why is it that we're so surprised that it says here 2 or 3 witnesses? How much more impossible is it to convict someone of a capital crime based on the testimony of only one witness, right? Not only might it not be valid, but it could be very difficult because, again, as Joey said, you might not know if the person is telling the truth. You also need witnesses and you need evidence, right? You need to be able to say this person did something so egregious that we are going to put them to death. That's very hard to just come from one person, right? For a whole host of reasons. They might be standing on one side, but the bullet maybe came from the other side, right? There's a whole host of reasons why one person is not enough to be able to make this case. We would have to answer that seeing the crime carrying a death penalty is so severe, surely the testimony of one witness is sufficient if the penalty is to be a deterrent. The Torah does not accept this kind of reasoning and insists on at least 2 eyewitnesses. Thoughts about this? Yeah, Mark. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm. Huh. Interesting. So Mark just said that the only crime that is mentioned is treason, and that in that case is in the Constitution. Sorry, did I not say that? Sorry. In the Constitution, it's hard to repeat back every single word. Is treason, and that in that case you also need to have two witnesses, which is really, really fascinating. I wonder if, in the case of the Torah, they were both being held to kind of the same level of importance. Right. Sure. Yeah. Any other thoughts, comments? Okay, I just put this little thing at the bottom. We're not going to read it, but just about, how our system works today in terms of juries, right? The fact that you don't actually only have witnesses, but you actually have people who don't know of the case, don't know of you, probably don't even know of law, right? And they come and they are now supposed to hear all of these witnesses and hear of all this evidence, and then they also help make the judgment of the case. So I just wanted to add that piece in as well, even though that's not what the Torah is bringing about. Oh, I'm glad. If I could get credit for making you feel good about jury duty, but then never have to do jury duty, that'd be great. It's so funny. I just had a conversion student ask me if she could get out of jury duty for Rosh Hashanah. And I said, yeah, of course you can. She said, even though I'm not yet Jewish. And I said, well, they don't know that. You just say that you are Jewish and that you're. Right. Yeah, right. Great. Yeah, Tom. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. I do think that the severity is definitely, when we're talking about law in general in Torah, we tend to go to the most severe so that we know that if anything were to be kind of, quote, below that or come across as even more severe than what they could have even imagined, that we know kind of what the baseline is, right? So it is, I definitely think that they are trying to hone in, even the commentators are trying to hone in on what that severity is and how not necessarily just difficult, but how important it is to have there be standards and boundaries and hoops to go through to make it something that really feels important and severe for what it is. Okay, so let's go on to Gittin. We're just going to do the Gittin piece on here and then the Shulchan Aruch. You can read the Kritot if you would like at another time. But in Gittin it says, Abaye said to him, so a rabbi in the Talmud said to him, you say testimony? Testimony is different, as the Merciful One states, from their mouths, which emphasizes that testimony must come from the witness's mouth and not from their writing. I just thought this was really interesting because it's kind of to Tom's point, it's not just saying, okay, this is really severe, we need to have two witnesses. This is also saying this is the way in which you have to be a witness. You have to be able to say something. You can't just write me an email of what you saw. You have to be able to account for what you saw in what you would say about that crime, right? I obviously know that Law and Order is not real. I'm just using it as an example. I'm not in court, proceedings very often or ever. But the point at which someone is being questioned, whether as a witness or a suspect, they're asked to share their story multiple times, right? Because you could write an email and then just send an email and that's what I saw and that's it. But if you're asked to share your story multiple times, unless it's true, it's very hard to stick to all the little details that you shared in your story every time. So what the Gemara is doing is putting yet another fence around this and saying, okay, we need to have witnesses, but those witnesses also need to be able to do the hardest thing possible, which is tell us exactly what they saw and account for everything that they saw by mouth. Right? They have to remember, they have to say it accurately. Hysterical, that was the word I couldn't say. And they have to be able to hear that which they are saying to make sure that other people can understand it. Yeah, Alan.
If you're talking about what Chazal do with respect to make the death penalty more difficult between the witnesses,
Yeah.
they require, traditionally they do require that you have to have two witnesses warn the person about the killing. It's those same two witnesses who actually would see the killing take place. If only one of them does it, it's not enough to impose death penalty. And it is, yeah, but there's so many restrictions that are put into place regarding it. There's one that says that if one would do it, they would do it every 7 years, once every 70 years. And it says one other rabbi would do it, he would never be able to do that. Because the same restrictions that are used about the gymnastics the rabbis go through
Yeah.
for the rebellious son, called a homer.
Right, right.
Are used with respect to the death penalty.
Interesting.
So much so that even if you saw someone wielding an axe,
Yeah.
go into the forest, and then you come across him and you see him standing over the dead body with a bloody axe in his hand, and you're the only one who saw it, that person would not be, the axe killer could not be put to death under Jewish law.
Interesting. I am not going to even attempt to repeat all of that, but it does. Right. It seems like circumstantial evidence, especially in the Torah, big T Torah, meaning all of the Jewish canon writings, is very specific to make sure that it is not something that's easily just put on somebody based on their crime. And if you would like to know more, talk to Alan because he knows a lot about it. Yes, Joey. If you what? Right. If you tell the truth, you don't have to have a good memory. Exactly. Right. Because if you're telling the truth, that story is going to be the story that you tell over and over again. Right. If it's a lie, it's a little bit harder to keep to. What was written? Interesting. It's good to have lawyers in the room. Yeah, Tom. Yeah. Right. Right. Sure. Right. I think that's such an interesting point that so much of this is about the human, right? About how we are dealing with this as humans, both by the way, the person who committed the crime and therefore is being treated by other humans, hopefully with, in a form where he or she feels as though they are human, right? Not just being treated as an animal or as a criminal. But also, when we talk about, my brother is a lawyer, so there are certain things that I know, not just based on the show Law and Order, but when, if a witness comes up and says something that then is what's it called when it's like taken off the record, when it's stricken from the record, thank you. And I knew that this motion would help with that. When it's stricken from the record, the jury has still heard it. Right? Even though you say it's stricken from the record, we're all humans. We all just heard it. And I know from teaching in a classroom that as soon as you say, let's pretend we didn't hear that, they all remember that much better than they're going to remember anything else. So the way in which you are also sharing information or hearing information, we have to take into consideration the human process, right? That you know how to A, play the game, and B, you also need to take into consideration what the people are going to hear. And that's part of the game. So the Shulchan Aruch, which is our main code of law, is going to take a stand on this, and this is what we're going to end with. A testimony sent in writing to the court is not testimony because the Torah states, al pi shnaim edim, from the mouth of 2 edim, and it doesn't say from their writing. This is in fact our custom. So this is how we hold to this day. It can't be in writing. It has to be written, which by the way is very interesting when it comes to a ketubah then. Can we call it a lawful text? Probably not, because it's in writing. It's not by mouth. Not like those who allow it for otherwise valid witnesses who are not mutes, which gets into a whole other category of talking about people who have different kinds of needs than we do. So this is just, I really want to just share this with you to see what kind of justice system we are working with, both, right? The Shulchan Aruch is how we go about things today, but also from the Torah, right? It doesn't go so far. It's not like we read something in the Torah and, oh, this Shulchan Aruch piece, it's really surprising, right? It's really very much connected. And the fact that we need to be a people that listens to all stories, right? Listens to all sides. Now, I'm not talking about putting someone to death. I'm just talking about in general, being able to know that the utmost honor, right, that you can give another person based off of potentially life or death, but also just in general, is to be able to hear their side of something. They don't have to necessarily be in a fight with someone else. You talking to another person, you're hearing their story about whatever it is. Right? And that is being witness to something, to someone else. I'll just end with this because this morning I did an ufruf, so weddings are on my mind. When I talk about a ketubah under a chuppah, I often talk about it as being a legal document in that it is something that is signed and has witnesses, so it's a Jewish legal document. But what I make sure the entire community knows is that, yes, there were 2 edim, right? There were 2 people that signed that ketubah. However, the reason that we read it under the chuppah is because every person at the wedding needs to feel as if they are also a witness to this relationship. And not just at the wedding, but for the future of this relationship. So if the couple continues to be in great spirits and love one another and have no conflict, you are witness to that. And if they end up being a couple that goes through strife or has complications with their marriage, with fertility, whatever it is, that the people who are in their lives at that moment of their wedding are their witnesses, are supposed to be part of their relationship to hold them accountable as much as they're supposed to hold each other accountable. So I hope we can use this lesson in our lives as well, not just in the courtroom, but also to be able to listen to each person that we encounter fully and to know that we are hearing one side of the story when hearing one person, but it's a very important side of the story. We are going to continue with Mariv on... Oh, yes, Birkat. I forgot Birkat last time. Okay. Yes, we are going to do Birkat. I will start Shir Hamalot, and then someone can do the first paragraph for us, and then we'll do it silently. I'm sorry. Oh, you have Birkonim on the table. 46, is that true? 47, very close. Shir Hamalot b'shuv Adonai et shivat Zion hayinu kechol mimaz yemale tzchok pinu uleshonenu rina az yomru v'hagoyim hidil Adonai la'asoti meileh hidil Adonai la'asoti manu hayinu semechim shuv Adonai et shevitenu kafikim ba'negev hazorim bedima berina yiksoru haloch yalechu v'achon Chazara, Boya, Verina, no se alumata.
Baruch Shemo. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hazan et haolam kulo b'tuvo v'chein b'chesed urachamim unoten lechem lechol basar ki leolam chasdo uv'tuvo hagadol tamid l'chasar lanu Umetiv lakol, umechim hazon, lechol briyotav asher bara, Baruch atah Adonai, hazan et hakol. Yasher Koch, Joey. We're going to stand for Baruch Hu on page 264. And if you are at home, it's on page 281 or page 137. Vehu rachum yechaper avam velo yashchit vehi bala shiva pavaler kochamato Adonai Hoshia hamelech yaneinu veyam korenu Baruch Hu et Adonai hamvorach. Baruch Adonai hamvorach le'olam va'ed Baruch Adonai le'machal ha'mashiach. ומעביר יום ומביא מבדיל בין יום ובין לילה אדוני צבאות שמו אל חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני המעריב הרבים אהבת עולם בית ישראל אהבת עולם מצוות ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Adonai Elohim Emet v'menakol kayam alenu k'Elohim. ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה בני ישראל לכהנו שירה בשמחה רבה ואמרו כולם מי כמוך בעלים אדוני מי כמוך נדר בקודש נורא תהילות עושה פלא מלכותך ראו בניך בו קיים לפני משה זה אלי אנו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגואלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום והעמידנו מלכנו ופרסנו את השם. ושמור צאתנו ובואנו לחיים ולשלום מעתה ועד עולם ברוך אתה אדוני שומר עמו ישראל לעד ברוך אדוני לעולם אמן ואמן ברוך אדוני מצוין שכן שלום אמן. כי המלכות שלך היא ולעולם לעד תמלך בכבוד כי אין לנו מלך אלא אתה ברוך אתה אדוני המלך בכבודו תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד ועל כל מעשיו יתגדל ויתקדש מרבה והעמד יברח יותר וימליך מלכותי בחיי חונב יום החונב חיי דכל בית ישראל ועגלה בזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהי שמירה וברך לעולם לעמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם וינשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתלהש מקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו amen. The whispered Amidah can be found on page 270. Just remember to still include Ya'aleh v'Yavo for Rosh Chodesh. If you've not yet finished your Amidah, please continue at your own pace. Chatzi Kaddish is on the top of page 279. יתגדל ויקדש שמי רבה, בהמה דברך ותבן לך מלכותי, בחיי חונם יום חונם חיי דכל בית ישראל, בגלה בזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה וברך לעולם לעולמי עמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם וינשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלש מדקודשה ברכו. להילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. Vihino Adonai Eloheinu Aleinu Ma'aseh Yadenu Konenu Aleinu Ma'aseh Yadenu Konenu Yosher B'Satelu Mitzvah Konenu. Yikra Eini Veinu Yimonu Chivatzarach Latzevach Vadei Orchem Imasbiyu Veri Bishuhati Orchem Imasbiyu Veri Bishuhati. Turn back to page 216. ואתה קדוש יושב תהילות ישרה וקרא זה אל זה ואמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלך הארץ כבודו מקבלים דין. ותישא עיני רוח ושמע אחרי קורש גדול ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו אדוני ימלך לעולם ועד. ויבטחו בך יודעי שמך כי לא עזבת דורשך אדוני אדוני חפץ למען צדקו יגדיל תורה וידיר. קדיש שלם, page 280. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בהמה דברך ותבן לך מלכותי, בחיי חונב יום חונב חיי דכל בית ישראל, בגלה בזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם לעולמי עמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם וינשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלש מדקודשה ברכו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. תתקבל צוד ההון ובד ההון דכל ישראל, קודם ובהון וישמעיה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום רבה משמעיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום מרמיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עלינו לשבח לאדון כל התתקלה לצוות. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. So tonight is the first night that we say Psalm 27, which is found on page 59, or for those at home on page 80 or page 92. So we will turn to page 59 and then do Mourner's Kaddish following Psalm 27. Adonai hori vishi mimi Adonai me'oz chayim mimi evcha bekarav alayim. אחת שאלתי מאת אדוני אותה וקשבתי בבית אדוני כל ימי חיי לחזור פניו אדוני לבד. לו האמנתי לראות בטוב אדוני בארץ חיים קווה אל אדוני חזק ויאמץ ליבך וקווה אל אדוני. Mourner's Kaddish page 58 goes back a page. Page 58. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה בעלמה דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם לעולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא V'yithadar, v'yit'aleh, v'yithalal, shemei dekudesha brechu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma ve'imru amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. All right, we will do Havdalah. I just want to make a quick announcement while I'm turning the computer around. This week begins the Elul series that we have at Betham. There are offerings in person. There are offerings in person and online. There are offerings just online. There are also offerings in the morning, at noon, or in the evening. So you should be able to go to something that you are excited to attend. I'm starting the series tomorrow with a class here on the roof at 5 p.m. Our theme is back to the basics. So we're trying to do some kind of foundational work as a community to try to figure out why it is we do what we do to make it more meaningful throughout the year. That doesn't mean that the classes will be low level. It just means that they will be focused on the why and not so much the how of what we do. And Rabbi Dorf is teaching this week. Rabbi Rembam is teaching this week. Cantor Chorny is teaching this week. And then as the weeks go on, there will be new teachers. So I hope that you'll be able to join any and all of those classes. Earlier, so I'm not so worried that there was stuff in it, but okay. Ya na 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 na, ya na na ya na 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 na. Hinei al Yeshuati, eftach velo efchad. Ki ozi vezimrat ya Adonai vayehil lishua. Ushaftem mayim besason. Mimanei ha-Yeshua, Ladonai ha-Yeshua, Alamcha virchatecha sela, Adonai tzevaot, imanu, miskavanu, Elohei Yaakov Sela, Adonai Tzevaot, Ashrei Adam Boteach Bach, Adonai Hoshia, HaMelech Ya'aneinu V'yom Koreinu LaYehudim, Hayta Ora V'simcha V'sason V'ikar Kenti Elanu Kosi Yeshuot Esa Uv'shem Adonai Ekra Yainanai Yananai Nainai Yainanai Yananai Nainai Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei minei v'samim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei meorei ha'esh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamavdil ben kodesh lechol ben or lechoshech ben Yisrael le'amim בין יום השביעי לששת ימי המעשה. ברוך אתה אדוני המבדיל בין קודש לחום. המבדיל בין קודש לחום. חטאותינו ימחו. זרענו וכספנו ירבה ירבה כחול וככוכבים בלילה. זרענו וכספנו ירבה ירבה כחול ככוכבים בלילה. שבוע טוב, שבוע טוב, שבוע טוב, שבוע טוב, שבוע טוב. שבוע טוב, שבוע טוב, שבוע טוב. אליהו הנביא, אליהו התשבי, אליהו, אליהו, אליהו הגלעדי. במהרה בימינו יבוא אלינו עם משיח בן דוד, עם משיח בן דוד. שבוע טוב, everyone. ברוך תהיה. Yes.